بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وبعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الحديث حديث محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثات بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد. Sorry. Brothers and sisters, guests, everyone, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So you guys got to get in a good mood now. At least in a cheered up mood, a little bit, relax a bit. I don't know what you said or what you did, but you made poor Yasser really nervous. I think he said everything except why we're here. Smile at him, pat him on the back, you know. Muslim Volunteers in Du'at Fellowship is one of the projects we're working on. And one of the important things that we deal with and we support people like Yasser to, you know, encourage, to make them feel like, you know, you can do more, you can do better, and you encourage other youth to do the same. So after the event, give them a nice big hug and say you did really, really well. You know, give them some encouragement. It's kind of like he slaughtered my intro. I don't really care about the intro much, but he did. He's like, what do I say about you? I was like, you don't know me. But never mind. Brother Yasser is really sweet. Make dua for him, inshallah. Brothers and sisters, today's topic is a difficult one to deliver. In no way am I going to claim that I'm going to do this subject any justice. It is something that I remember learning when I first came into this beautiful deen many, many years ago. I'm not that old, just a few years ago. But one thing I do know is that one of the things that changed my life was brothers like you and older brothers as well in a mosque, in a masjid in central Houston, where I came off of the highway of life and went into the masjid. And all I remember at that time is that, one, it was Ramadan. Two, you're used to, but I'm not in Texas, is that it was very cold that Ramadan. It was winter time. That kind of tells you how long ago that might have been. And three was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the seerah, his life, or any aspect of it. That was the time when people really broke it down and went into discussions, went into topics of the seerah, and that really did change my life, as it did many other people. I know a lot of people have benefited from it. So in no way am I going to do it justice, because I remember the Sheikh who was teaching us about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and almost every day between Maghrib and Isha, and then long after the Taraweeh, deep into the night before Tahajjud, another 2 hours of seerah lessons and stories and, you know, exciting, blood-rushing, iman-boosting storytelling. I remember every single night he would weep and cry. And he would say, and when he would weep and get emotional, it would always be when he's closing the book. And I used to ask him why at that point he gets emotional. He said, if only I had more energy to carry on, there's so much to learn. He would get upset that, okay, we're tired, let's stop. Guys are falling off, they're dozing against the wall, they've got their heads leaning on their shoulders. It's not an easy subject. It's not an easy subject. So I'm going to very briefly touch on just the most painful time in Islamic history. So you're going to have to bear with me. I'm going to try to keep a straight face as much as possible. Because much of what we're going through today is because of this day. It is towards the end of the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his last sermon. Wallahi, as I speak, my elbows are shaking. Because he ﷺ told us that when life gets difficult, or if you feel pain or agony, just remember my death. There's nothing worse that could have happened to you. There is nothing worse in our life that could happen to us than the loss of our beloved Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. I'd like to begin by just reading out to you the last sermon, and then we'll go through some points inshallah. One of the things that one of my teachers used to say is that Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah, he used to read Quran and he used to teach others to read Quran in a manner where he would describe the Day of Judgment. He would break it down, he would describe it in a way where he would make you petrified. He would show you the fire. And he would describe the fire. He would describe the Day of Judgment, the heat, the sun above, and so on and so forth, naked, barefoot. And while standing in that way, he would explain how much you would wish you could talk to someone to help you out of that situation on that day. To be separate from the rest, to be away from accountability. How you would wish you knew someone in management or someone in higher position. And on that moment, if that were granted to you, an angel were to say, come aside, come here, you're separate from the rest. You will be addressed separately. And if that happens, and you stand before Allah, and Allah speaks to you, how attentively would you listen? That is how you should open the Quran and stand before Allah and read. And so when you read the Quran, you will be much more attentive to what Allah is saying to you. Today, with this sermon, I'd like to just say, try to be there. I'll draw the picture for you. The Muslims struggled. The most painful time in their life was leaving Mecca and leaving the Kaaba. And that was so special, so dear to them, that when they left, it was so painful. They went through so much difficulty, financially as well, and health-wise as well, that the Islamic calendar was based on that day, upon that hijrah. The entire Islamic calendar began when they moved, when they migrated to Medina. So their heart was always longing to go back to Mecca. They could imagine it through the hills, through the mountains, that they would get back home one day. They missed it so much. On one occasion, they were almost at the Kaaba. They came to the outside of the city, in the valley of Hudaybiyah, where they thought they were about to go back, and they were turned around and they had to go back home and not completing the pilgrimage. So they had a homesickness for the Kaaba and coming back and so on and so forth. So on this occasion, all these difficulties are over. The Muslims have been given the fath. Mecca has been opened. The Muslims are comfortable. The numbers, people are joining Islam by the thousands. One man is not taking Shahada. He's bringing his whole clan, his entire tribe to take testification to the hand of the Prophet ﷺ and join the Muslims. So on this day and age, it is really, really comfortable for Muslims. It is extremely beautiful, a cool breeze of victory. And they are now performing the Hajj, and they have gone to the valley of Arafah, and there they have gathered. You try to imagine yourself there, as I would, inshallah. And there, after praising and thanking Allah, the Prophet of Islam rose on the pulpit and he said, He said, O people, listen well to my words, for I do not know whether after this year I shall ever be amongst you again. Therefore, listen to what I am saying to you very carefully, and take these words to those who could not be present today here. O people, just as you regard this month and this day of Arafah, this city of Mecca, as sacred, so regard the life and property of every believer, every Muslim, as a sacred trust. Return the goods entrusted to you, to their rightful owners. Treat others justly, so that no one will be unjust to you. Remember that you will indeed meet your Lord, and that He will indeed reckon. He indeed will reckon your deeds before you. God has forbidden you to take usury, the riba. Therefore all the riba obligations shall henceforth be waived, and your capital, however, is there for you to keep. You will neither inflict nor suffer inequity. God has judged. Allah has passed judgment that there shall be no riba, no interest, and that all riba due to Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib is henceforth waived. It is erased. Every right arising out of homicide, murder, in pre-Islamic days is henceforth waived. The first such right that I waive is the arising from the murder of Rabi'a ibn al-Harith ibn Abdul Muttalib. O men, the believers indulge in tampering with the calendar in order to make permissible that which Allah has forbade. O men, the unbelievers, indulge in tampering with the calendar in order to make permissible that which Allah has forbidden, and to forbid that which is good and Allah has made permissible. With Allah, the months are 12. They are 12 in number. 4 of them are sacred. 3 of these are successive. And 1 occurs singly. Between the months of Jumada and Sha'ban, beware of shaitan. O Muslims, beware of shaitan, for he has lost all hope of ever misleading you again in big things. He has lost all hope in ever misleading you again in big things. But I fear he will be able to lead you astray in small things. Beware of following him in little things. Oh people, it is true that you have certain rights over your women. It is true that you have certain rights over your women, but they also have rights over you. Remember that you have taken them as your wives only under Allah's permission, as a trust, and with His permission. If they abide by your rights, then to them belong the right to be fed, clothed, and dealt with, and taken care of in kindness. Treat your women well, and be kind to them, for they are your partners and committed helpers. It is your right, and they do not make friends with anyone of whom you do not approve, as well as never to be unchaste. Take a moment to realize this is the last time pretty much our beloved Nabi is going to address the entire people. How painful it is for us to think we are going to die. We are going to leave this world. Or our father will die soon, if he hasn't already gone from you. Our mother will soon pass. Our spouse will eventually, our children may leave. Some of us have lost children. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is about to leave. And these things I'm talking about, sometimes it pains me to think that this was the last thing he said. And sometimes it pains me even more how you and I will just listen to them like trivial things. Do we understand these are the most important matters that are destroying and eating at the ummah today? And thus he has chosen to address these points, the interest, the small things, the small minor sins that lead to bigger ones, the injustice at home, the family, and the abuse between brothers and sisters towards each other. Oh people, listen to me in earnest. Worship Allah. Perform your 5 daily prayers. Fast during Ramadan and give your financial obligation of your wealth. Perform the Hajj if you can afford to do so. All mankind, everyone is from Adam and Eve. Every human being is the same. We are all equal. All of mankind, so that means Muslim and non, black and white. We are all from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, and a non-Arab has no superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over a black, nor a black has any superiority over a white, except by piety and good action. Learn that every Muslim is a brother to his Muslim brother, to his other Muslim. And that the Muslims constitute one brotherhood. Nothing shall be legitimate to a Muslim which belongs to another Muslim. The right that belongs to someone else will never become legitimate to you unless it was given to you freely and willingly. Do not therefore injustice upon yourself. Do not therefore do injustice upon yourselves. Our beloved Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam said to us, remember, one day you will appear before Allah. And by this time, majority of the companions were in tears. Majority were having a difficult time even sitting there listening. Majority were having a lot of pain in their chest, unbearable agony, while he was saying this to them. You'll appear before Allah yourselves, and you will answer for your deeds. So beware, do not astray from the path of righteousness after I am gone. O people, no prophet or messenger will come after me. And that applies to all the new sects out there. No prophet or messenger will come after me, and no new faith will be born after this deen. Reason well, therefore, one study. Reason well, therefore, O people, and understand the words which I convey to you. I am leaving you with the Kitab, the Book of Allah, and I am leaving you with my Sunnah, my example. If you follow them, you will never go astray. All those who listen to me shall pass on my words to others, and those on to others, and those on to others. And here I am passing it on. All will pass it on to others, and may the last ones understand my words better than those who listen to me directly. Ameen. And may the last of those who repeat these words may they understand them better than those here before me. Ameen. Be my witness, O Allah. I have conveyed your message to your people. The Quran revealed to Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. Revelation came. Jibreel delivered a message from the Almighty. The words were revealed. The first 5 verses are related as, read, in the name of your Lord who created man out of a clot that clings to the womb. Read, and your Lord is most bountiful, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. From that first revelation, my brothers and sisters, he stood all the way to this moment in the face of how many different kinds of adversities. We fall into depression sometimes, right, brothers and sisters? We get sad sometimes. In our life, we feel pains and agonies at times, disappointments. Wow, how many things did he face from the first revelation? Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. From that verse all the way to this day, where he stood and he said, and the description says, he faced the heavens and he pointed towards the people. And he said, bear witness, O Allah. I conveyed your message to them. And he said to the people, have I conveyed my message to you? And they all unanimously said, indeed you have. There are a few points I want to point out, and then I want to tell you some stories about the Prophet ﷺ in his last moments. Very important to take away is the verse in Surah 33 when Allah Azza wa Jalla says to Muhammad, O Prophet, we have sent you as a witness
a news bearer, and a warner, and as someone who invites the people to God by His permission, and a shining lamp. You are a shining lamp. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was sent to mankind as a news bearer, a warner. He spoke the truth. He didn't invent anything. And he didn't say anything from his own twins. The purpose of this sermon, I want to point out just a few things to show that he lived up to it. Many of us just think, yeah, he came, the Quran was revealed, he completed the deen. But there are some main points. I'd like to point out just 12 of them. 12 main points that he delivered. And you think of how difficult it was to do. And then you and I must think, what are we going to do with those points that were delivered? Keep in mind, he was a warner, but he is also a witness. He becomes witness against you and I. When we say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Allah becomes witness against us or for us, depending on how we live according to that kalima. And when we say, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, alayhi salatu wassalam, will be witness for us or against us, depending on how we live with that knowledge of the Sunnah. And he delivered that message to us. So after praising Allah, and he said to the people, "O people, listen to my words, for I don't know whether I'll be here after this year. I don't know if I should be amongst you ever again. Therefore, listen to what I am saying to you very carefully, and take these words to those who could not be here today." This is in the Valley of Arafah. All these Muslims, and a lot of them brand new. They've just become Muslims. And a lot of them are the old cats. Those who really took their time with Tawheed. They understood the deen and understand. The older ones, the ones that have been around a lot longer, those who we see as the greats, they could barely sit and listen after he began with these words. I don't know if I will be amongst you again, or in a gathering like this. The weeping began right after this. And he said a few of the words about riba, and he said a few of the words that I mentioned. And he spoke about brotherhood and so on and so forth. So the points I want to raise are the first one, trust and accountability. When he said, this city is sacred, so regard the life of property of every Muslim as a sacred trust. And in the Quran there is a verse where Allah Azza wa Jalla says, if anyone killed a person, unless it is for murder or spreading mischief on the earth, it would be as if he killed the whole of mankind. And if anyone who saved their life, it would be as if he saved the whole of mankind. Surah 5 verse 32. That verse was sustained and upheld in his final sermon. I'd like you to just take a moment and reflect that though he spoke very layman-like, he spoke just normal, his words weren't normal. Many people don't revere the word of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ enough. In fact, there are people out there who say we don't need Sunnah, we will follow Quran only. Little do they realize, every single breath this man took, alayhi salatu wasalam, was a form of revelation. When he spoke, if he made a mistake, and indeed he did, he was only a man. When he made a mistake, he was exposed that this was not correct, and he was corrected, and he was rebuked, like the verses in the Quran, Abasa wa Tawalla. And the purpose of these things were to show people that even his mistakes is a revelation. It's not really a mistake. It is there to teach us a lesson. Even in that is a lesson. Once he did not say Insha'Allah, and he was corrected by Jibreel, you are still a man. You must say Insha'Allah. It is Allah who decides. And in that was revelation. Everything is revelation when he speaks. So when he stood on that mountain, I want you to reflect, oh brothers, that sometimes when you make da'wah to people and you invite people to the deen, sometimes you can't quote ayat of Quran. Sometimes you can't just say the hadith. You can't say right or wrong. Sometimes you have to speak from the heart and say, listen my brother, or listen my father, or listen my mother. Wouldn't it be better if we did this? Sometimes you just take people towards what's better without explaining haram, halal and whatnot, unless they ask, unless their hearts are open to it. My point I'm making is this entire sermon is full of verses of the Quran without quoting the Quran. He didn't say these words just for the sake of saying them. Just in this first beginning, when he mentions the trust of mankind, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the trust of brotherhood, about the amana of people. Trust and accountability. That was just one verse in the Quran. Financial obligations. When he says, return the things kept to you as a trust and return it to the rightful owners. It is haram for you to take something which does not belong to you. You will receive no permission with this. There is no right in it. Can you take something? Yes. Can you steal? Yes. Can you get away with it? In this life, maybe. But you will, and I will face Allah. People say Muslims are great people, they don't steal. That's not true. Muslims are some horrible people on the planet sometimes. But they don't steal because they know you don't get away with it ever. You will face Allah. So we don't steal because we know that. It's not that we don't steal because we're such good people and we don't want dunya and we don't want things like everyone else. It's because we fear facing Allah. We want to make Him happy. We want to please Him. Just in this one point, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ raised. There are so many lessons, and the Quran clearly says, if one of you entrusts something, the one who has been entrusted with it should have over this security. He should hand it over and he should heed God and not hide any testimony. Anyone who hides it has a sinful heart. And to this day, for 1,000 years, I've seen myself in my lifetime, sadly, many not my family, but families, fighting over inheritance, fighting over whose rights or what, struggling over, but I bought this in partnership, and they fight. My own father's partner back in the States had a dispute over something, and so on and so forth. My father, when he died, my father went to his grave and spoke about all the ills that he did, and he said, I forgive him. Allah is witness and you're all witness that I hold nothing against this man. As an example, the Prophet ﷺ being our example, because otherwise people do hold things back, and when they meet Allah, they will answer for it. I'd like to just take one extra step and show the character of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that when he did take goods from people, it is not between Muslims, okay? It's between people. You don't steal from a non-Muslim because he's a kafir. You don't take from a non-Muslim and say, but he's not a Muslim. For by Allah, Muhammad was gone from Mecca, he was saved in Medina, and even though the Meccans hated him, they knew this man is a trustworthy man. Even though they wanted him dead, and they had plotted to assassinate him, many of them used to take their most expensive, most important possessions and give it to Muhammad in private. Say, can you look after this for me? There's no one in Mecca more trustworthy than you. There was no banks, deposits, safety deposit system. They left it with him. But when he left Mecca and went to Medina, who remained behind? When they came to assassinate him, who did they find in his bed? Ali radiallahu anhu. And why did he leave him behind? So that he could show them, no, Muhammad's not here, I am. Many people think that's what it means. No, that's not why. So Ali radiallahu anhu could stay behind and no one would say, Muhammad has fled Mecca and taken my wealth with him. The Muslim is a thief. The Muslim has stolen goods. He remained Ali behind with a list of people's names and all their goods and where it was kept in the house. And people came one by one the next day. Muhammad is gone. My goods. Yes, they are here. They are safe. Your name is here. Here's your goods. And he returned every single item back to the person who had entrusted him with it. That is our example, Ya Ikhwan. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not just say this on his last sermon, his last words to you and I, except that it is important. And I'm not saying this just for saying it, except that I have seen so many Muslims stealing from each other even. I have seen so many families robbing each other, arguing and bickering over dunya. Too many, in fact. Interest. He mentioned it, and it is mentioned in the Quran. O you who believe, fear Allah, and write off anything that remains outstanding from lending at interest. If you are true to Allah and His Messenger, if you repent, you may retell your principle. Do not wrong, and you will not be wronged. Do not wrong, and you will not be wronged. He fulfilled that verse in the Quran. Testament of a wife. When he mentioned the wife, and he mentioned the example of wife, in the sermon he says, they have rights over you as well. The Quran says, provide for them, the rich according to his income and the poor according to his means. A provision according to the custom. This is an obligation for those who act kindly. Also in Surah Baqarah, also in Surah An-Nisa, he says, treat them politely even if you dislike them. Perhaps you dislike something in which Allah has placed much good. So he related verses in the Quran. When he warned about shaitan, Allah says in the Quran, verily shaitan is enemy to you, so treat him as an enemy. He only invites his followers that they may become companions of the blazing fire. And shall I just remind myself and you that when we stand on the day of judgment and we're afraid and we're petrified, and Allah says, هَذَا يَوْمُ لَا يَأْتِكُونَ وَلَا يُؤْذَنُ لَهُمْ فَيَأْتَذِّرُونَ. This is the day none of you will be able to speak. And no one can come forward and speak on your behalf. But shaitan will speak. He will be put in a position where he will give his khutbah. And he will say, Allah promised you. And I promised you. Allah was truthful, I lied to you. Knowing that, how can we listen to him? Knowing that, how can we listen to him and follow his path when he talks to us, when he whispers to us? One of the most important aspects I'd like to just take a few minutes on is that brotherhood. And I pray we leave here today strengthened in brotherhood, inshallah, and sisterhood. I pray we leave here today strengthened. Just imagine the Prophet ﷺ was given the wealth of the world. He was in a position where he could have any wealth he imagined. He was in a position of authority, yet he died with hardly enough to bury him. My point being is that one of the things that takes brotherhood away from us is our desires, in our arguments, in our bickering, in our disputes. One of the things that cause this kind of harm is that love of dunya and not enough detachment of it. When he mentioned brotherhood, oh, you people listen carefully. The believers are brothers and you are not allowed to things belonging to other Muslims. Allah says in the Quran, believers are but brothers. So set things right between your brothers and fear Allah so that you may find mercy. We know the many ahadith, including the most famous one, that our good deeds will not be raised to the heavens so long as two brothers or two sisters are in dispute. And Allah says to the angels, hold them off. The good deeds are coming, hold them off. Allah holds them off. Hold them off. Until they have reconciled. Until they make up, don't bring me their good deeds. Because what good is it if they can't obey me and their brotherhood? But at least today I pray, there may be no one you dislike in this room, I don't know. There may be someone you dislike outside, someplace else. You want to think about them. Fix it. We need to be together now more than ever. Fix any situation between any relatives, any family members. Fix it. We're going to die. We're going to leave this world. And we're going to answer. And we're going to think, but I've done so many good deeds. And none of them left the earth because we did not reconcile. We do so many good deeds and they're all just sitting here waiting. And they don't leave the earth. Because we did not reconcile. Superiority is only in piety. When He mentioned that no Arab is better than a non-Arab, etc., Allah says in the Quran, the most honored among you. In the sight of Allah is the one who is most righteous. The most righteous of you, and Allah has full knowledge and is well acquainted with all things. Surah 49, 134. Who can be better in religion than he who submits his whole self to Allah, his inside and outside to Allah, servitude, does good deeds and follows the ways of Ibrahim, and Allah did take Ibrahim for a friend. May Allah grant His friendship to all of us. But that has to be earned, my brothers and sisters, through righteousness and good deeds, to our neighbors, to our friends, to our family members. In the sermon he says, to be successful, and I like to end with this, in order to find success in this life, towards the next life, he says, O people, reflect on my words. I leave behind me two things. I leave behind me the Quran and my example. If you follow this, you will not fail. Allah says in the Quran, Ati Allah wa ati Rasul. Obey Allah and obey His Messenger so that you may achieve or receive mercy. Surah Al-Imran. Let's start over. Sorry about that. You know when the Prophet ﷺ stood on the minbar and he gave this last sermon, and after it there were verses revealed, which I'll tell you in a minute. I'll tell you now. In Surah Ma'idah we have these verses where Allah says, and today I have perfected your religion, and I have completed my favor upon you. And when he recited these verses, Umar was one of the first, radiallahu anhu, this great man, to burst into tears and begin crying. And he felt the pain. And the Prophet ﷺ asked him, why do you cry? And he said, because after perfection, it's only followed by imperfection. So many people say of today that we are a race of technology and technological advancement. I myself am an IT consultant by profession, so I know that term is used all day, every day. Truthfully, the term technology is understanding. What good is a computer if you don't know how to use it? Understanding is the most important type of technology. And we use tools, computers and other things. They are not technology. It is when they are used to understand and make life better, that is when they become technology. And the peak of technology was the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Because anything you asked, anything we needed to know, he was there to say it. Today, we have a brother here saying one thing, a brother there saying another thing. We have Muslims over here, Muslims over there. And no one can say what is the truth in the middle. Because he, alayhi salatu wasalam, is not here to say who's right and who's wrong. Where's technology? Technology is understanding. So Umar ibn Khattab understood this well. That this verse is talking about the demise of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are other signs I'd like to share with you. When this Hajj was done, the khutbah, the goodbye khutbah, they call it the goodbye, the farewell sermon. So painful, because they knew that once you reach the peak of technology, it is only decreasing. And the decrease is what? The decrease is the moment the Prophet of Islam dies. So they knew that if the deen is complete, and Allah says the favor is finished, then his days are numbered. He's leaving. And they began to feel the pain immediately, and they began to weep. So he left behind, he said, my Quran and my Sunnah. We have some people who refute the part of the hadith that says, and my Sunnah. And they say, we have this whole debate, not going to get into it. They'll say this is only about Ahlul Bayt. When we know clearly that his Sunnah, his example, was taught by his companions, including his family. All of them related his life, what he did, what he didn't do, what he said, what he didn't say, what he allowed, what he forbade, what he approved of, what he disliked, everything. And that is the example that he's left behind. Brothers and sisters, if we can leave here today deciding how we're going to end our life, are we going to follow his example and leave his example behind us for our family members and our friends and those who know us when we leave this world? Will they say the same? I got a text of a young man today in his 30s. He had 4 heart attacks apparently in a row. And we don't know if he'll make it. May Allah give him shafa'. Ameen. Ameen. Many of you know who. Ameen. A brother named Ameen. Sorry. He died. May Allah forgive him. So he did pass away. He didn't make it. May Allah give him Jannah. I could have been you. I could have been me. Amin Siddiqui was a very close friend of mine. And he worked with me in Dawah. He started Al-Fitra with me many years ago. And he gave his life to Dawah. He had a lot of money in the beginning when I knew him. And towards the end of his life, he hardly had anything to cover his funeral rites. Most of his money was spent on the Dawah. And I'm witness to that. Allah bear witness to that. And he gave as much as he could to the Dawah out of his time. He didn't do anything else. That's all he wanted to do. In fact, one day, I dropped people off, and I'm on my way home, and I see Amin in the back seat. And I thought he was gone. And I looked, and I see a shadow. I was scared the daylights out of him. It's dark, late night. And I noticed it's him, and I said, Amin, what are you doing here? And he just goes, I don't know. I was just really hurt inside because it made me realize how lost he felt. And I said, do you want to go home? Do you want me to drop you off? He said, no. I barely knew him at the time, so I didn't know what to say. And I'm like, well, I got to get home. He said, do you want to come home with me? He said, okay. And he stayed at my house for 1.5 years. I love telling that story. I really do. I don't know how many times I've told it. But you know what? Soon after, involved in Dawah for a few years, I said, Amin, do you want to get married? Not once did he mention it. Brothers today, yeah, I want to talk to you privately. I know what it's about. Can you help me find a sister? There's lots of them, huh? They just don't want to marry you, sorry. No offense, I'm joking. That was a bad joke. But Amin said to me, yeah, okay. Took him to a family, went and saw the family, and as we're leaving, I said, so do you like her? He said, okay. So should I say yes to the dad? Okay. And literally is how the conversation went. And he got married, and just a few months after getting married, he was diagnosed with cancer. And we fought it for a few years, a couple of years. And December 1st, 2007, Amin, at the age of 26, was no more. He died in front of me. Don't know when you're going to go. But I'm witness for him. You know, you don't know when you're going to go. My question is, when you leave here, what will you leave behind? What will people say about you? And that's the biggest weakness we have, is showing off. It's a horrible crime to show off and make people like you, etc. But you know what, bluntly? There is a certain amount of people liking you that is important. When you die and you go to your grave, if a lot of people turn up at your janazah, it's a good sign Allah will forgive you. If a lot of people think well of you, it's a good sign Allah will forgive you. Not because they like you, but because it means you did that much good for people. It means you helped that many people. It means you kept that many people happy. That when you left, they missed you. I miss Amin. You don't find too many good people. And that includes myself. I don't know if I'm any good, but one thing I do know is I want to be like that. That when I leave this world, I leave behind only good. And I pray from this last sermon we realize the panic in the Prophet Muhammad's heart for you and I, in the small things that shaitan will mislead us with. That he said, I fear for you in the small things that he will misguide you in. So he told us, observe the pillars of Islam, the Salah, the Hajj, etc. But remember in Surah Baqarah, just the Salah. None of the other 4 pillars will take you out of Islam. Don't go Hajj, don't give zakat, don't fast, so on and so forth. You don't do the main 4, those 3 main pillars, you don't do them. You don't go to hell. They're mistakes, they're sins, as long as you intend to. But Salah, you leave that, it takes you out of the fold. It's dangerous. But yet in Surah Baqarah about Salah, Allah says, it's not piety that you pray. See, it catch 22. So many of us pray 5 times a day. That doesn't mean we're pious. No one should walk around with their head up thinking, I pray, he doesn't. Because Allah says in Surah Baqarah that you're facing east and west, the prayer. It isn't the Qibla. On either side, no matter where you are on the planet. It is not piety. Piety is a belief in Allah. So meaning you won't do evil deeds, you'll do righteous deeds because you know He is watching you at all times. Belief in the Quran, you will avoid the things that will take you to fire because you believe in it. And the Prophet said the only reason a person would sin and do evil is because he doesn't believe in the fire. If he believed in it, would he slip? Would she slip? So even though these pillars were advised to us, piety, strengthening in the righteous deeds, keeping the right company, duties regarding those working under us, about those, He says, oh people, be mindful of those who work under you. Feed and clothe them as you feed and clothe yourselves. Also in the Quran Allah says, act kindly. Just as Allah treated you kindly in what you need. God has favored some of you over the provisions to those whom the right hand controls, so that they become equal partners in it. Would they thus disclaim Allah's favor? Muhammad in his, ﷺ, in his last sermon, he said to the people many messages. And he said, "O people, no prophet or messenger will come after me." And Allah says in the Quran, Muhammad is not the father of any of you men, but he is God's messenger and the seal of prophets. God is aware of everything. You realize that kingdom, monarchy, power goes from father to son. And Muhammad ﷺ had sons to show that he can. So the Arabs wouldn't say bad things about him. Because they had a culture, if a man cannot have a son, it's a bad sign. And he was completely a man. A perfect man, mashallah. He had sons, but they died early. Because Allah would not allow him and his sons to grow, because the prophethood ends with him. And his legacy begins from his death onwards. Our duty is to spread the message, brothers and sisters. All those who listen to me, pass my words on to others, and those on to others, and those on to others. And may the last of you understand them better than those who are here today. Amen. You must get involved in da'wah. You must get involved in the projects that we're working on. Start your own projects, whatever the case may be. Do the best you can, brothers and sisters. It's all we can do, but do it sincerely. And let Allah's blessing shine into them. It is the ikhlas that pulls it in. And the Prophet ﷺ lastly said, "Have I conveyed my message of God to you?" And he asked the people this, and they all responded, "You have. God is the witness. You have." And that applies to all of us. And I have repeated it today, and I pray we leave today understanding it better than those before us. Amen. It's better than I can go. Sorry. I'm going to tell you a few symptoms while they prepare, and I'm going to tell you about the projects we're working on so you can get involved. I don't want to just bring empty-handed advice. One of the most important things is the lectures I'm involved in and the da'wah I do. It's very, I don't mean any harm. Some people's feelings get hurt sometimes. I really don't mean any harm. But I'll tell you what it is. There's no point in me, just talking. And there's no point in you just listening unless we're willing to act. At least in some capacity that we are able to. So the projects we're involved in, we'd like to share with you. Some of you may find benefit in it, and others of you will at least pass it on to others, inshallah. So I want to share with you some of the projects we're working on. But before these guys are ready, before I do that, I just want to tell you a couple of sentences before the Prophet ﷺ passed on. In Ramadan, and this was the 10th year of Hijrah, he secluded himself for 20 days. Now normally in Ramadan, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to do itikaf for 10 days. And this particular year, he did itikaf for 20 days. And that was a big sign that he was preparing for something. Jibreel would go through the entire Quran with the Prophet Muhammad every Ramadan ﷺ. And in this Ramadan, at the end of this Ramadan, he went through the entire Quran twice. And then lastly, his words in the last sermon when he said, "I don't know if I will be in your company again next year, if we will meet after this day." The revelation of Surah Nasr, when this was revealed, many companions cried. And generally, the surah was actually a beautiful surah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسِ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. Beautiful verses that talk about the opening of Makkah, the victory that came to the Muslims. It was promised by Allah, and Makkah was opened without any bloodshed. And the verse continues to say, many will come into this deen, fi dinillahi afwaja, by the masses. So turn to your Lord, fasalli li rabbika, turn to your Lord in prayer and pray. Turn to your Lord. Fasabbih bihamdi rabbika wastaghfir. Turn to Him in repentance, asking Him to forgive you. And verily He is one who accepts repentance and will forgive. And this was the peak. This was the pinnacle. And many companions understood this meant another sign of the Prophet ﷺ leaving us. And lastly, on the early days of Safar, in the 11th year of Al-Hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ, he went to Uhud. And this is quite emotional. There's quite a few signs. I'm going to stop at this one. When he went to Uhud, we know the Battle of Uhud. And on this month of Ashura, there are many people who weep the things that happened with Hussein radiallahu anhu. And it is terrible what happened. And there are many other lessons to be taken in this month. But we know the fasting we did in this month on the 10th day was relevant to the hadith about Fir'aun being destroyed and Musa being saved. But regardless, some people say, well, that was a much bigger catastrophe and we should reflect on Hussein's death, etc. But I say the Battle of Uhud was even more painful, where 70 were slain and Hamza was mutilated and our beloved Nabi was struck, almost killed, and his life was saved. He was protected by a woman. He was saved and protected and sheltered, and she took many wounds for him. Having said that, Uhud was such a major thing still in Ramadan. It happened in Ramadan. We don't take that month and reflect on Uhud enough. But what I want to say about Uhud was, he actually went to Uhud in his last year, and he went to the valley where the Shuhada were buried, and he made dua, and he spoke to the people, and the way he spoke to them, they said, was as if he was saying goodbye to the living and to the dead. I pray that we learn from these examples and these stories, and when the next Shaykh comes and speaks about it as well. Okay, can I just ask you guys all to make dua for me? Anything correct I have said is from Allah's guidance. Anything I may have said that may have slipped out incorrectly, or you heard it incorrectly, these are our valuable mistakes. We're human. May Allah forgive us and make us forget those things. Ameen. I ask you to make dua for me, my family, and the projects we're involved in, that we are granted success. And I pray we all meet at the pond with the Prophet ﷺ and giving us drink.